All right. Matt the Mortgage Guy here. In today's video, I'm going to talk about, are home price increases sustainable, or are we going to see a housing crash? In today's video, I want to talk stats. I want to talk about what I'm seeing, feeling, and hearing in the real estate market. And rather than have some, grandiose clickbaitish type headline that the sky is falling and the market's going to crash, I want to provide just some insight from somebody who talks to potential home buyers every day, someone who talks to real estate agents every day, and looks at data unbiased. Before I jump into it, if you would and you appreciate straightforward advice from somebody who's in the trenches working on this stuff every single day, like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff for the YouTube algorithm. Okay, let's jump into it. So I'm sure you've heard, and I'm sure that, if you're in the market to buy a house, or some of you are just interested in real estate, whether you work in it, whether you're just, a homeowner who looks at real estate information, want to know what the market's going to do in the future. A couple things I think that we should look at. First and foremost, let's look at like the average home price appreciation over, decades and decades of data versus what we've seen lately. If we go back to say 1990 and look at 3 decades worth of data, home price appreciation on average is 3.8% per year. When home prices are going up 3.8% per year, some might say, hey, it just, barely outpaces inflation. It doesn't do much for the average home buyer, but it does increase in price. If you're looking at somebody who wants to buy this year versus 5 years from now versus 10 years from now, you should expect real estate to go up in price. Should it go up in price as much as it has the last 3 years? Well, some would argue no, right? Nationally, and remember that real estate's local, so your market may be higher, your market may be lower. The number in 2020 was somewhere around 10%. Each month had a different data point as far as year-over-year appreciation, where some were lower and some were higher. But on average, 10% home price appreciation in 2020. 2021 started off, year-over-year in those early months, 10, 11, 12%. By the end of the year, some of the numbers in December in 2021 were like 18% year-over-year home price appreciation. The average for the whole year was about 15%. So that's what we've seen in the last couple of years, which a lot of people will say that's not sustainable. We're going to see a housing crash because of that. What are people forecasting in 2022? Unfortunately, if you're a buyer who is hoping that things will become less expensive in 2022, I've got news for you. Almost nobody would say that 2022 we're going to see any sort of home price depreciation. On the contrary, most of the projections are somewhere between 3 and 10%. On average, when you look at a bunch of different folks and their projections, it's a 6.3% appreciation in 2022. I'll fire off some of those stats. Zelman says 3%. Mortgage Bankers Association says 5.1%. Same with NAR, National Association of Realtors. They're saying 5.1% in 2022. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, 6.2%, 7.6%. CoreLogic is guesstimating 9.6% price appreciation in 2022. So across the board, they're all seeing appreciation, some as low as 3, some as high as close to 10, but home price appreciation nonetheless, meaning in layman's terms, homes are getting more expensive. Now, I want to tell you, if you want to think about it like I do, and you want to keep it simple, home prices in general are always going to be a function of supply versus demand. When there's not a lot of homes for sale and there's a lot of people that want to buy, that creates upward pricing pressure, because that's what happens in markets, right? If there's 50 people that want to buy 5 things, you're going to find 5 of those 50 that are willing to pay a little bit more, versus if there's 50 things and only 5 buyers, well, those 50 things, they're going to have to lower the price on those to get these 5 buyers to buy, right? And so in the market we're in, where we've got very little inventory, we're going to continue to see upward pricing pressure. How little of inventory do we have? Well, if you look at some of the boomiest years, well, I shouldn't say boomy, some of the greatest months of inventory on record, 07, 08, 9, and 10, right? Where home prices were starting to fall off of a cliff. We had 9.6 months, 9.4 months, 7.3 months, and 8.5 months of inventory for those 4 years I mentioned, 07 through 2010. If you look at the last 4 years, 2018 through 2021, check out these numbers. 3.7 months in 2018, 3 months in 2019, 1.9 months in 2020, 1.8 months in 2021. So we're on a steady decline. There's less and less inventory, meaning supply, and it's causing this upward price pressure, right? It's pretty wild to think about. In 07, there was 9.6 months of inventory. 2021, there's 1.8 months. That's, less than 20% of the amount of inventory that was here, or an 80% decline, right, in 2007. So no wonder homes are getting bid up. No wonder why there's multiple offers on homes. There's just a lot less for sale. So if you're thinking about, like, how do we determine what's a stable market, what's a buyer's market, what's a seller's market, in what markets are home prices going to go up, in what markets are home prices going to go down? As a general rule of thumb, people will say that a balanced market is about 6 months of inventory. So with 1.8 months of inventory right now, we're well below that. And as I've said, and I'll repeat again, different markets are different. In a lot of markets, there's less than 1 month of inventory. My market in Sacramento, California, less than 1 month of inventory. So even more aggressive, even more of a seller's market. But let's call 6 months a balanced market where there's 6 months of inventory. As you get closer and closer to where we're at right now, which is 1 month, 1.8 months, depending on your market, as that number goes 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it's creating more and more upward pricing pressure. As it goes the other way, towards 9.6 months, like we saw in 2007, you're going to see downwards pricing pressure. So if nothing else, if you watched housing inventory, you could get a feel for what prices are going to do, right? If we go from 1.8 months of inventory on average up to 3, that should relieve some of the pricing pressure. Remember, it doesn't mean that we're going to go from 10% appreciation to home prices going down by 15%. It might just mean we go from 10% appreciation to 5% home price appreciation. If we get up to 5 months or 6 months, that might mean that it just goes flat. Home prices aren't going up, but they're also not going down. Truth be told, you probably have to get to 7 or 8 months of inventory before you start seeing the downward home price depreciation, which some of these YouTubers out there that are, have really great thumbnails and really nice titles to click, are talking about 20, 30, 40% home price depreciation in some markets. So that's the supply side. Now on the demand side, I know, because I'm a mortgage broker who's working in it all day, every day, that I'm not biased, and it's not like what I want to happen, what I think's going to happen, any of that stuff. What I see is more and more people getting in and getting themselves pre-approved, wanting to buy a house. So there's desire to buy, there's ability to buy, and truth be told, more and more homes are selling. There's just not near enough to satisfy all the demand we have. People would be surprised to hear that 19, 20, and 21, those 3 years, we've seen record number of home sales, like a 15-year record. There was 5.3 million homes sold in 2019, 5.6 million sold in 2020, and 6.1 million sold in 2021. More and more homes are being sold. We just don't have enough homes to sell to satisfy all the demand, right? And in these first couple months of 2022, I feel like that demand is only ramping. There's only more and more people that want to buy, that want to get in while interest rates are low, while they feel like, they can afford to buy in the neighborhood they want to buy in. So let's watch those two things. Let's watch supply and demand. And if you're a simple-minded guy like myself, it should be really easy to follow what we think is going to happen in the housing market. If for whatever reason we saw some huge spike and there was 6 months of inventory overnight in a market or two, you can rest assured those markets are going to see a slowdown in appreciation. And if it continues to go 7 or 8 months of inventory, they could start to see home price depreciation. So that's all I have for now. I'll follow up and do another video and talk about home affordability and some of the myths around that. I just don't have time in this video. One last thing I want to mention for people that think that the housing market's out of control and that we're going to see a repeat of old times. We are nowhere near where we were back then with really bad loans being written. One data point I'd like to point out, which I think was really interesting that I heard today, was back in 2003 to 2007, every single one of those years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, over 300 billion in mortgages were written for people with sub 620 credit score. And I think, 300, 310, 340, whatever it was, every single year in that 5-year span, more than 300 billion in mortgages written for people sub 620 credit score. Home prices have gone up, so mortgages have gotten larger. In 2021, less than 50 billion in mortgages written for sub 620 credit scores. So the buyers are as strong as ever. They're more qualified as ever. We're not seeing foreclosures. There's not any, thing that's going to cause this housing market to fall off a cliff. We just saw the jobs number up, the economy improving. And so anybody who's wishing for a market crash, I hate to tell you, I just don't see it. I'm going to wrap this up before it gets too long. Thank you so much for watching. If me and my team can help in any way, please feel free to reach out. Go to greatmortgagebroker.com, ping us. We'll get in touch. No matter where you're at or what you're looking to do, we can offer good advice. Again, greatmortgagebroker.com. Thanks for watching. And until next time, we gonna see.